Story time!
Warning: contains adult content, including harsh language, violence, and sexual themes, and may not be suitable for people under age 16. Life in Wayward City was much different for Kin and Gin Jisatsu when they were growing up as children. For one, their family was very poor, their mother, Nami, being unemployed, and their father, Kenta, working 2 jobs that paid horribly for unfair hours. The twin brothers never really understood the concept of money, but they didn't want much as long as they had each other. In fact, the boys were rarely ever seen apart at home, school, or when wandering around the city. Their tiny hands would be glued together wherever they went, took their baths together, and God forbid if you didn't let them nap in the same bed, you were asking for a double tantrum. Little Kin and Gin were taking a bath before bedtime, playing with plastic hand-me-down toys that used to belong to their parents, most of which were broken. Just as Gin was drowning a tiny army man in the water, its head broke off, and he scowled. "I'm glad Mom and Dad are actually giving us a real birthday this year," he pouted, chucking the figure across the room angrily. Kin set his wet hand on top of Gin's head and ruffled his hair comfortingly.
"We'll get all new toys," he said excitedly, "and we'll get more presents from all the kids from school that are coming."
Gin couldn't contain his excitement.
"This is the year we turn things around, right, Kin?" "Right. No more poor kid stuff."
It was a week before the twins' 6th birthday, and their parents had saved up all year to give their sons the party they've always wanted, for they could never afford one prior. There was going to be pizza, cake and ice cream, goodie bags for the guests, and games. Nami and Kenta made sure to inform all of the parents of the kids at school so that there would be plenty of attendance. Kin's jubilant smile slowly fell, and Gin noticed this.
"What's wrong?"
he asked.
"I just thought of something," Kin murmured. "Not everyone who is coming knows us."
"Or likes us," added Gin.
"Or we don't like them. So how do we know that they're not just coming to the party to get free food and toys?"
Gin sat on this for a moment, and then his brother continued,
"They probably won't even bring good presents. Their mommies and daddies will pick something crappy from a drugstore without any thought of whether we'd even like it." "You're right," said Gin lowly. "So what do we do?"
Kin stared at the plastic head still floating in the bathwater, and he grinned a nasty grin that was unsettling to see on an innocent child's face.
"Simple, dear brother," he murmured. "We take control."
As the week went by, the brothers insisted to their parents that they wanted to plan the games and events for the party themselves. They allowed this, wanting the boys to have independence for their first real birthday party. Not that the parents had the time to do a majority of the planning anyway. For reasons unknown to the children, Nami and Kenta Jisatsu were rarely ever home, and not being able to afford a babysitter, the boys were often left home alone, forcing them to learn how to take care of themselves on their own. Their parents never told them where they were going, but always assured them that they'd know when they got older. What they did know was that it involved their aunt, Kakureta Jisatsu, who was actually Kenta's fraternal twin sister. Twins seemed to run in the family on their father's side. The brothers really liked their Aunt Kakurita, for she was pretty, classy, dominant, and intimidating. She had this air of authority that their parents didn't, holding her head up high and gazing at her surroundings as if she were the ruler of Encephalon. She always dressed quite professionally in blacks and dark reds, though somehow managed to radiate an extremely intense amount of sex appeal. The boys did not know what she did for a living, but whatever it was really important, and they loved being around someone that had so much power. Not only that, but both Kenta and Nami seemed to fear her a bit, and that amused Kin and Gin immensely. The twins were in their room, a large whiteboard propped up on a wooden stool, which was covered in the chicken scratch that was the children's handwriting. They were shelling out last-minute ideas for the party, which was the very next day, and whatever was being discussed had both of them in a very good mood. They were ripped out of their conversation by the bedroom door opening, and they looked to see their father peering in.
"Hey, boys,"
he said, but his voice cracked, which told them something was wrong. He cleared his throat before continuing.
Your aunt is coming to your party tomorrow."
"Really?"
Kin and Gin exclaimed in unison, looking ecstatic.
"She's never been able to come see us in person on our birthday,"
Gin said with a little hop.
"That means we're going to have to look really nice,"
added Kin, running to their closet to look through clothes.
"Gotta impress her."
"Don't get too excited. I don't know how long she's staying,"
Kenta said firmly. He was always worried about his sons idolizing his sister the way they did, wishing they would just fear her like everyone else.
Doesn't matter, Dad,
said Kin, taking out 2 dress shirts that were identical, save for the fact that one was black and one was white.
We want to show her that we can be important just like she is. Maybe she'll think we're mature enough to tell us what she does,
said Gin, and Kenta's frown became more pronounced.
Don't you dare ask her,
he warned.
You are not old enough to handle it. Frankly, in 10 years you still won't be old enough, but chances are you'll find out eventually.
Why don't you just tell us?
The twins asked together, wearing the exact same expression of indifferent frustration.
You wouldn't understand,
Kenta mumbled, and he left before the boys could argue further.
Father is so fickle,
Kin sighed, laying on the bottom part of the bunk bed they had, which was Gin's bed, but they both slept in it regardless.
I think if we had a chance to show Auntie how independent we are, she'll tell us what she does, what our parents do when they disappear, and a bunch of other stuff,
said Gin, snuggling up next to him.
Well, even if she doesn't, it's still going to be fun with all the games we have planned,
said Kin. They lay there for quite some time, cuddling with much more affection than would be considered normal, up until their parents called them out for dinner. Once they were done eating, they brushed their teeth and got in their pajamas, then laid together once more in the bottom bunk. Just like every night, they fell asleep in each other's arms. The backyard was set up with decorations, streamers, balloons, games, a table with many little identical bags sitting neatly on the surface, and there was even a small wooden stage standing adjacent to the back of the house. One by one, the twin schoolmates began to show, each holding a present, some big, some small. Once everyone had arrived, there were nearly 30 children in the backyard, all talking amongst themselves as they waited for the birthday boys. A thin woman entered the kitchen where Kin, Gin, and their parents were discussing last-minute details and making sure everyone was there. She was tall, extremely busty, and her skin was so pale it was as if she had never seen the light of day. Her hair was almost unnaturally black, and it fell straight down to her mid-thigh. Her dark brown eyes appeared sunken in, almost sleepless, but she was gorgeous nonetheless. The boys saw the woman and squealed, running up to hug her. Her crimson lips curled into a smile on her deathly pale face, stroking their hair with her perfectly manicured hands. They pulled away, and the woman moved her long curtain of black hair from her face, grinning at her brother.
Good afternoon, Kenta,
said Kakurita in a very smooth and lovely voice, though it caused Nami to shiver.
Kakurita?
Said Kenta in a professional tone. Kin tugged on Kakurita's short black skirt excitedly, and she looked down at him once more.
Auntie, do you have a present for us?
He squeaked. Kin, Nami hissed, frightened. Don't be rude. However, Kakurita knelt so that she was eye level with the boys, and dug into the pocket of her dark red leather jacket. The boys watched greedily, and Kakurita produced 2 small presents, one wrapped in black paper and one in white. Kin snatched the black present, Gin took the white one, and they both tore them open. Inside each box was a necklace. Both had a thin silver chain and a single pendant that appeared to be half of a human heart. Kakurita took the necklaces and showed the twins that their pendants fit together using built-in magnets, and when the pieces were combined, they made a whole heart.
If you 2 wear these,
she said kindly,
it means nothing can ever tear you apart, even if you're not in the same room. What do you think?
We love them, the twins said in unison, and Kakurita giggled as she helped them each put their necklaces on. Kakurita stood and looked out the back door at all the children.
Well, you don't want to keep your audience waiting, do you?
But you aren't gonna leave as soon as we go out there, are you? Asked Gin sadly.
No, I need to talk to your mommy and daddy for a bit,
Kakurita replied.
I'll be right here. Go have fun.
They gave her another hug, then ran outside to their party. Kakurita's sweet smile turned into a cold frown as she stared at her nephew's parents.
So?
They are too young! Nami nearly shouted, but Kenta put a hand on her shoulder to silence her.
She is right, Kakurita,
he said firmly.
They are still too young.
How long are you going to make me wait?
Kakurita snapped, crossing her arms.
We go through this every year. They are children!
Kenta cried desperately.
So was I, Kenta,
Kakurita argued.
And thanks to your cowardice, I've had to work alone for nearly 30 years. It's time for a successor.
You can't go yet!
Then when, huh?
As the adults argued in the house, Kin and Gin stood on the stage in front of their guests, most of whom looked as though they didn't want to be there. There were a few that did stare at the twins in awe, as if amazed they had been lucky enough to be invited. Kin cleared his throat firmly, and everyone went completely silent.
We're going to do presents first, said Kin formally. Here's how it's going to work. You will line up single file and give us your present. We will open it and then instruct you to stand on either the left or the right side of the stage. After all the presents have been opened, we'll start playing games, continued Gin. The side of the stage you're on determines what team you belong to. All right, line up, Kin barked, clapping his hands, and the confused children did as they were told. From inside the house, Kakurita's eyes flickered onto the scene, and she furrowed her brow. The first person in line to give a gift was a little blonde boy, and it was obvious he didn't much like the twins at all, for he wouldn't meet their eyes. He stood and watched as they opened the present, which contained 2 identical sweaters, navy blue in color. Said Kin, and he met his brother's eyes. All right, go over there, said Gin, pointing to the left of the stage, and the boy nervously followed the order. Next was a girl with bubblegum pink hair that was pulled into 3 ponytails. You don't go to our school, said Kin as he took the present, and the girl blushed.
I'm from Smilesville,
She said in a squeak.
My other goes to your school, but she couldn't make it, so she sent me. I've heard so much about you from her, and I really wanted to meet you.
Once again, the twins exchanged looks, and then opened the gift. There were 2 books, but they were copies of the same title. The Tales and Poems of Edgar Allan Poe, complete collection.
I hope you like it. Eris said you liked reading, but I wasn't sure what kind of reading.
This is great,
the twins said in unison, and the girl flinched, but smiled all the same. They directed her to the right side of the stage.
What are they doing?
Kakurita wondered out loud, interrupting her brothers' arguing. He and Nami turned their attention to the backyard, seeing the line of children giving their gifts.
It almost looks as though they're sorting them.
We gave them creative freedom for their first real party, said Nami, noticing her son sending certain kids to the left of the stage and others to the right.
It's probably just a game,
said Kenta, studying his sister's expression carefully.
Open the door a bit,
Kakurita ordered.
I want to hear what they are saying.
Once the line was complete, there were 2 groups of kids, though the one on the left seemed significantly larger than the one on the right. Gin set up their whiteboard on a wooden stool and made a T-chart.
Okay, you have been divided into teams,
he said loudly.
But that team has so many more people on it,
complained a boy from the group on the right.
Don't worry,
said Kin.
Now, you need team names. Please talk amongst yourselves and choose a captain. Then tell us your name.
The children obeyed, and finally, the boy who had complained raised his hand.
What is your name?
Jason, he replied.
Are you captain?
asked Gin.
Yeah,
Jason said nervously. Team name? said the twins together.
The Thumbscrews.
Gin wrote the name on his chart, and then pointed to the other team.
Captain,
he said, and a red-headed Cyclops girl stepped forward, looking scared.
My name is Jessa,
she said.
Team name?
The brothers said once more.
The pirate monkeys?
Kin and Gin looked at each other, and then Kin's mouth curled into a terrifying grin. Kakurita's eyes widened when she saw it.
No, I don't think so,
he hissed, and Gin wrote a different name on the other side of the chart. Maggots.
That's not what we agreed on,
said Jessa as the other team snickered.
It's our party,
Kin growled.
Okay, the first game we're gonna play is Scavenger. We've hidden 50 marbles around the backyard.
Your job is to find as many as you can in 5 minutes,
said Gin.
The team with the most marbles gets a prize.
What's the prize? said an other on Team Maggots.
It's a surprise,
cooed the twins. Kin held up a kitchen timer and set it for 5 minutes, and then set it on the stool with the whiteboard. Without hesitation, the children scattered around the yard, searching for the marbles.
Look at that,
Kakurita breathed excitedly, though her brother and his wife were not nearly as thrilled.
Look at how easily they manipulated their peers. They are natural leaders.
They're just playing a game,
Kenta mumbled, but Kakurita ignored him, continuing to watch the game. After 5 minutes, the children had handfuls of shiny spheres, and the twins separated to count each team's findings. The Thumbscrews only had 15 marbles, whereas the Maggots had about 28. However, when he was certain everyone was looking at him, Kin pulled a bag from his pocket and handed it to Jason. Jason opened it, seeing it was filled with more marbles, and there were about 50.
Winner!
Kin said, holding up Jason's hand.
No fair!
cried Jessa.
You gave them more!
Nonsense! Gin said happily, climbing back onto the stage and drawing tally marks on the board under the Thumbscrews. He didn't even seem to be counting them. He just threw them down carelessly to fill the side of the chart.
They found them, and they win. Jason, your team's prize is that you get to retrieve your goodie bags and play with the toys inside,
said Keen.
And you get to watch while we play another game with the maggots.
Okay, said Jason, and they all went to the table with the goodie bags, choosing one each. The twins turned to the dejected children that were part of the losing team.
We're going to play Simon Says,
said Keen coldly.
But the way we play is a bit different, so we call it Jisatsu Says.
Spread out! Keen ordered loudly, making everyone jump.
Arms length apart! Move it!
The maggots obeyed, terrified at how hostile their hosts were suddenly being. The members of the Thumbscrews were a bit scared too, but found solace in the little toys and pieces of candy they found in their goodie bags.
Perfect,
said Keen once the children found a place to stand.
The rules are simple. Do what we say, or you're out. When you get out, just sit on the ground until the game ends, added Gin.
Jisatsu says touch your nose, Keen shouted, and the frightened children all touched a finger to their noses.
Jisatsu says touch your ear,
Gin demanded. However, a couple kids lowered their hands from their noses to touch one of their ears.
Did I say to stop touching your nose? Everyone who removed their finger from their nose is out! Sit down!
The 3 kids sat down, one of them starting to cry.
Jisatsu says stand on 1 foot!
Keen barked next, and the remaining children did so, not taking their hands from their noses or ears.
Hop once,
said Gin, but he laughed when a number of kids hopped.
I didn't say Jisatsu says! Sit down! Jisatsu says open your mouth,
said Keen, but this time it was calm. A few of the kids were hesitant, but they did as they were told.
Jisatsu says close your eyes,
continued Gin. As this order was followed, a few children fell over, losing their balance. They stayed on the ground as they were now out. Gin took a bag from his pocket, and it appeared to be a goodie bag. He leapt off the stage and wandered around to each child that was still standing, placing something small and brown in their mouths. The ones who sat out looked disappointed.
Close your mouths and open your eyes,
said Keen, and half of the remaining players did so, but immediately spit out the object in their mouths. It was not chocolate.
I did not say Jisatsu says. The rest of you, Jisatsu says to open your eyes, close your mouths, and swallow the rat dropping that Gin has given you.
All at once the children began to cry, not wanting to obey.
Do it!
Gin shrieked, and the back door to the house quickly opened all the way, the twins' parents quickly going to each child and encouraging them to spit out the feces. Kakurita stood on the back porch, still watching, her arms crossed and a wicked smile playing her face.
That's enough!
Kenta yelled at his sons, attempting to comfort the crying children.
This party is over! Everyone is going home!
Even us?
Asked a little girl from the Thumbscrews.
Everyone!
Bellowed Kenta. The brothers looked apathetic, but they addressed the Thumbscrews.
You may each take a second goodie bag,
said Keen.
And thank you for the wonderful presents,
said Gin with a smirk. As the children were led back into the house by Kenta and Nami, Kakurita came out, still smiling, walking up to the stage. Being elevated, they were almost at eye level.
Very nice,
said Kakurita smoothly.
What compelled you to torture those children? We knew some of them wouldn't give us good gifts,
Keen explained.
So we sorted them based on whether the presents were thought out or not. We rewarded the kids who took the time and effort to get us something we'd like.
Even that pink-haired girl who never met us personally got us something, said Gin.
Now that I think about it, I know her other, Eris. She's very nice to us.
You know your parents are going to ground you, right? Kakurita asked, but she was still grinning slyly.
We don't care,
the twins said in unison, and they clasped each other's hand tightly.
We prepared for this,
said Keen.
For a whole week,
added Gin proudly. Just then their parents came back out, looking furious.
Go to your room, now!
Shouted Nami, but to her dismay, her son simply smiled and calmly retreated to the house, still hand in hand. Kakurita turned to Kenta, her own smile becoming wicked and sinister.
10 years,
she hissed to her brother.
I'm giving you 10 years. When they turn 16, I'm taking them whether you like it or not. Got it?
No! Nami cried, tears filling her eyes, but Kenta knew it was pointless to argue. Though he didn't want to, he nodded, and his sister strode back to the house. Kenta held his sobbing wife, trying to keep himself from losing it as well. 4 years later, the boys' lives changed drastically, but not for the better. They were at school, and it was recess, which they preferred to spend watching the other kids play rather than joining them. They were leaning against the school wall, holding hands as usual, when a cherry ball rolled up to them. A gray, scaly child ran forward and grabbed it quickly, glaring at the twins as if daring them to try and play with the ball.
What?
Keen snapped, and the other children nearby turned their attention to the scene, wondering if there was going to be a fight. The boy looked to their locked hands and grimaced.
Why you two always holding hands?
He sneered.
Why not?
Spat Geen.
People only hold hands when they're together,
The boy explained.
you know, like dating.
The twins exchanged looks before grinning at the boy.
And what if we are dating?
They asked at the same time. A hush washed over the playground as every student was listening.
You two can't date,
Said the scaly boy.
you're brothers, it's wrong. What do you mean?
Asked Keen, his free hand clenching into a fist.
There has never been a law in Encephalon that says boys can't date other boys, or girls dating other girls. No,
Said the boy.
you're blood-related brothers. That's what makes it wrong. Why?
Said the twins.
Just because! That's how it is! In fact, I'm pretty sure it is against the law. You're lying.
Keen growled.
What harm could come out of it? It's just weird!
Keen hesitated for a moment, and then grabbed both of Geen's wrists and pulled him closer, giving him a brief yet firm kiss on the lips. The playground erupted in gasps, squeals, and jeers, and Geen blushed heavily, but was smiling all the same. Keen plucked Geen's heart necklace, and then his own.
Together forever?
He purred, and Geen held his brother's hand again.
No matter what,
He replied.
I'm telling!
Shouted the scaly boy, and he dropped the cherry ball, running into the school building. The twins honestly thought nothing of this, truly believing that the boy had been lying, or at least wrong. They were sadly mistaken. When the two of them returned home from school, they found their mother and father waiting for them in the living room, sitting on the couch and seeming quite unhappy. Nami herself looked as though she had been crying.
Kin, Gin.
Said Kenta firmly, standing with his wife and gesturing to the couch. They sat, both wearing confused expressions. Nami started pacing, and Kenta stared down at his children, making it obvious that they were in trouble.
We got a call from your principal today.
We didn't fight.
Keen said immediately.
Whatever he said, he's lying. We didn't fight.
No, he said another student came to him and claimed that you told him you two were dating.
Kenta said.
Well, we did.
Geen admitted, still not seeing the problem.
Why would you tell him that?
Kenta exclaimed, making the boys flinch.
Because we like each other.
Said Keen, his brow furrowed as he gripped his brother's hand, and Nami let out a dry sob.
We've liked each other for a long time.
Continued Geen.
Why? What's the big deal?
Kenta sighed, realizing the children did not know any better, and he knelt in front of them, pulling their hands apart.
My sons,
He said softly and kindly.
family members are not supposed to like each other that way. Not the way mommies and daddies like each other.
Why not?
The twins asked in unison.
Because it's incest.
What's incest?
At this point, Nami actually went into the kitchen so as not to be part of the conversation anymore. Kenta's throat felt tight, and he was nervous about trying to explain this to a pair of 10-year-olds.
It's when two members of the same family get into a romantic relationship.
He said as confidently as he could.
Your mother and I are in a relationship, but we are from two different families. We do not share the same blood. If we were part of the same family, you two may have been born with a lot of mental and or physical problems.
Well, it sounds to me like the only reason it's wrong is because you'd make retarded babies.
Said Geen flatly, and Kenta became angry again.
Watch your mouth.
He demanded.
It's wrong whether or not you're the same gender, okay? I don't know where you got the idea that you two liked each other that way, but you are brothers. There's a difference between that and loving each other as family.
Is it illegal?
Keen asked.
Not in Wayward City,
Kenta replied.
but it is in the other two quadrants. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's right. There are a lot of things in the city that are legal but are wrong. Do you understand?
But, Dad,
Keen argued.
I don't get it. If me and Kane like each other that way, then why is it bad?
I think it's time to give them separate rooms, came Nami's voice, and they looked over to see her standing in the doorway of the kitchen.
No!
The brothers shouted, but Kenta stood up.
Your mother is right.
He said,
You two decide who gets to stay in your current room. And once you've done that, start packing your stuff to move into the extra room. And I don't want to hear any more of this. You got it? You cannot like each other like that. End of story.
But Dad!
End of story! Now get!
The twins grumbled and trudged to their bedroom, Gin sitting on his bed and Kin sitting in a wooden chair. They were silent for a moment, and then Gin spoke.
I guess we won't be together forever then.
Kin angrily gripped the heart on his necklace and yanked, ripping the chain. Then he threw it to the floor and stomped on it with his heel, shattering the pendant, and tears fell from Gin's eyes.
There's no such thing as forever,
Kin hissed acidly, glaring at his twin with absolute hatred.
Pack up your shit. This is my room.
Without a word, Gin did as he was told, avoiding Kin's angry eyes. From then on, the brothers' relationship was never the same. They argued constantly, would get in physical fights, and would even do their best to not stay in the same room with one another. Their parents were mildly worried, but summed it up as a territorial thing that came with getting older. However, they were quite wrong. The fighting had nothing to do with them needing their space, but everything to do with the fact that they hated each other down to the very last fiber of their being. They never teased each other, trying to get the other angry. They wanted absolutely nothing to do with each other. Or did they?